Hey everyone, this is Josh Vision, and I'm here to give my Season 1, Episode 2 review of The Bodyguard. So, in this episode, you guys, we open up with David basically driving his kids to school. And what I found ironic about this scene is the fact that he basically chastises his son, Charlie, for crying and showing his emotions. And from the previous episode, even till now, we see that David, he struggles with showing his emotion due to, his PTSD that he gained, basically through years of servitude, as a soldier fighting over in basically the Afghanistan, war, and how much of a toll that's been on him. Even though, as we've seen so far, at least the past two episodes, we see that on the outside he seems cool, calm, collected, and different, almost emotionless when he's basically doing his job and when he's with, his employees for the most part. But it's only when he's by himself you really see the pain, and the anguish that he's in. Well, not really by himself, but you get what I'm saying. Even sometimes, like, you can tell there's something with his wife, or since they're separated. There's something that must have happened, which I'm very curious to find out, if it was like some type of abuse or whatever. And he shows emotion with his friend Andy, which plays a big role in this episode. So I believe besides that, we have Julia get information from, I believe, the Secret Service man, Steven, who wants her actually to rise up in rank because it benefits him. But he tells her that basically that there's a terrorist threat towards a certain elementary school. And I believe that's the elementary school which David Buzz's children actually go to. So once she hears this, she kind of looks at David, but she doesn't tell him, or anybody for that matter, that about the whole terrorist threat. I believe later on in the episode, actually, MI6 finds out, and there's a brief meeting about this. So basically, they have their people track down this supposed terrorist threat, which leads to them following this truck going through, the city. And I believe the truck actually gets close to the school or in front of the school. And then we have the officers from MI6 come out. And I believe the truck explodes, even though they kill the passenger and the driver. So I thought that was pretty I didn't expect that. But the kids are fine, so on and so forth. So with that, I believe this leads to the whole thing with David, actually. So due to the fact that it was found out that David's children went to that school. I'll put it like this. Due to the fact that the terrorists were able to find out not only about David's profession, but the fact that his children went to that school, which they were aiming for, I believe his employers, I forgot the woman's name, actually. I think it's Braddock or something, but she basically fires him, or not really fires him, but reassigns him due to the fact that she doesn't consider, she doesn't really think it's wise for him to stay at the post with the whole leakage stuff and them finding out the information so quickly. So basically him and his family are in a safe house until further notice, and he's basically resigned to desk duty, or he's at a computer. You could tell he's pissed off about that because he's really good, at being basically in the line of fire, being in action, all that. And that's definitely a downgrade, especially for a guy like him, when in all honesty, he really doesn't deserve it. He's been doing such a great job, so far. So we see him almost have another episode in which he's close to bursting out in anger when him and his wife have an argument about the whole, safe house deal, in which he's really trying to control himself. We have Julia actually sort of command for him to be reinstated to his post, saying that he's a hero essentially, and that he doesn't deserve to be basically thrown to the wayside. So he's reinstated, but before he's reinstated, he has this very interesting meeting with his friend. Well, not really a meeting, but he went out for drinks to the pub with his friend Andy, and they're watching basically Julia on the TV screen on the bar talk about basically using the example of the terrorist attack that almost happened over at David's children's school. Basically using it as an example, a political way of trying to enforce the fact that her way was right, that they should have more military aid, they should be more strict about their national security and being more enforced and being enforcing more private, basically enforcing more like basically trying to like screw the whole privacy law. Do what you gotta do, even if it's going past like normal privacy laws, so on and so forth. And I believe Annie was like, "Listen, this is what I'm talking about. This is basically a sanctimonious little itch here. All she wants to do is basically use us, like basically people of that ilk, like soldiers, government officials, whatever, so on and so forth, basically as political tools to further her own ambitions. She doesn't know what it's like to be on the front lines. She doesn't know what it's like to sacrifice, to know what it's like to be hurt, to be, or have your life threatened." And we see David agree. Think about it. David's been kicked out of his job. His wife doesn't want anything to do with him. They're separated. He has a bad relationship with his, well, not really a bad relationship with his kids, but but he's away from his children essentially. It's like, it's like a part-time thing. He's not there like he should be. And for what? And he's basically serving and protecting this woman who he literally hates, or at least hates what she represents in terms of her ideology. So what I found interesting about this is after he finds out that she kind of reinstated him, back into his job, and that she got, his son into that school which him and his wife wanted, we have this really epic scene in which they're driving, right? And then we hear a gunshot. It's like, boom! You're like, where the freak this crap happened? Like where did it come from? Now, the driver that was driving, he dead. And the blood splattered everywhere. I was like, yo, is this animal planet or something with all the blood and gore and all this crap? And I was like, oh, crap, there's a sniper. And this scene was very well done. The music, I loved it, because when you see the look on his face, it's just, you can see the panic. You can see the PTSD really, really starting to go over like everywhere. The facial, like the mannerisms and all that stuff. And despite all that, he was able to collect himself, calm down, and get back to, his training essentially, what he's good at. And he was able to calm down Julia. And I think this is really the first time in which we ever seen Julia basically lost her cool. Because usually she's been even kill, sarcastic, kind of an itch, an a-hole, and she never flickers. But obviously you can't blame her for flickering, because you got like a sniper, like took out one of your men, one of your driver, and wants you dead, and pretty close to it, So I believe David tells her, listen, we're in a bulletproof car. As long as you stay down, it's all good. I'm going to get you to safety, man, one way or the other. So we see David basically get out of the car, and we see him using his phone to try to, like as a rear view mirror, to try to figure out where the hell, the sniper's at. So he figures out where he's at. So he's able to get, Julia to safety, or at least a place safe for her. And he goes to the building where the dude's at, gets a gun, puts on a police hat, and then he basically finds the dude. He goes up the stairs, and he finds out that the guy is actually his best friend, Andy. And which made this whole thing very ironic, actually, because it's like Andy did say at the bar, I want her to feel what it's like when your life's actually threatened, when you feel helpless. So Andy, in a way, kind of accomplished his goal, even though it was a really messed up way of doing it, but whatever. So basically, I believe Dave was like, listen, dude, just give it up, mate. It's over. Just put the gun down. And Andy was like, listen, you have to finish the job, David. Do it. And then he Kurt Cobain's himself, essentially. And then what I loved about this particular scene is the fact that you see the emotion obviously coming out of David's face, but like when he says fuck, right, it's absolute silence. There's like no sound at all. It's just, he's just like F, you mean? And you're just like, oh, this is some serious, like, just a really well done scene, whatever. Especially with cutting off, like I mentioned before, cutting off like the swears. It's just like silence, essentially. You just see through the actions. And after that, we see basically David, basically like Batman in a sense. He's on top of the building where Andy was earlier. He's overseeing basically the aftermath of the shooting. And we see Julia still in blood, but she's being escorted, into a car. And we see Julia kind of sense that David is looking down on her. And when I saw that scene, I was really trying to figure out, was David really contemplating killing her at this point? Because remember, he has contemplated killing her, not just in this episode, but also in the previous episode. And that was his friend's last words, in the last scene previous. So I was wondering if he really was contemplating, and I think he was actually. And I think that's probably why in the very next scene, when he rushes downstairs in his house, or at least his little bedroom apartment, whatever, we see him kind of seal off, like, the place where he hides his gun. So I think it was probably him trying to resist the urge to kill her at that point, trying to find some calmness. What else happened actually? We see essentially that Ann Sampson, the woman ahead of MI6, who her and Julia constantly are clashing with each other. Julia is pissed off at Ann for not being able to give her the information in regards to the woman from the last episode. Remember the woman that actually tried to bomb the train which David and his children were on, mainly due to the fact that her husband put her up to it, and she didn't really want to do it. So Julia was pissed that Ann, despite being the head of MI6, was not able to get further information about why, her husband wanted her to do that, and even more information about the terrorist plots and all that stuff. But I think she did mention, Ann at least mentioned the fact that the material they had for the bombing was something very similar to the material in the truck that blew up, basically right in front of David's children's elementary school. So that's all they got. Besides that, we've had David and Julia make love to each other, which I honestly was not surprised about, because clearly these people got issues. David due to war, and Julia basically due to her antisocialist, her antisocial, I'm by myself, I'm gonna do things my way kind of lifestyle. So at some point, you kind of figure they were going to at least hit off each other, since that's basically all they have at this point, since it seems like they tend to burn bridges with everyone else they care about, especially Julia. But after this, we have David basically being told by his boss that basically kind of fire/reassigned him early in the episode, and Sampson, who's basically the boss of his boss, who's the head of MI6, whatever, that they want David to basically spy on Julia. And David, despite how he feels towards Julia and her philosophy, you can tell he's starting to have some feelings for her, but it's kind of like a love-hate thing. But he doesn't like the whole spying aspect of it. You can tell he really hates it. But yeah, thank you guys for watching my review of Bodyguard. I'll give this episode 8.5 out of 10. Actually an 8 out of 10. If I missed anything, please write some comments down below. And I'm sorry for this long review. I wish I could make it shorter for you guys, but so much crap happened in this episode and I loved it. Thank you guys for watching. Have a good one. Adios.